All right, welcome in. We are live. This is cold turkey. I mean, we are so far beyond the game that like 9 things have happened since the game. We had an emergency, barely a podcast, which the idea behind barely a podcast is that it's supposed to be short. It's supposed to be like 10 or 15 minutes. It's one of those like, hey, newsworthy thing. You come on, you fire off a take or two, and then we get out and just make sure that we just have an opinion out there on what happened. And you and I spent like 40 minutes. And I remember thinking like I could probably go another 40 minutes on this, but like we need to get out of here. This was the whole idea of this was just to like get it out there. But yeah, lots happened. How you been?
I've been good. Yeah, it was like you said, it was a strange, barely a podcast. We had to jump on, so we shared some of our Lions takes on that day,
A little bit.
But we saved the real Bear and Balance for 6 o'clock. Monday night. Here we are. We'll go through our normal run of categories here as soon as I finish getting all this stuff shared on my socials.
What's the equivalent of sharing our our takes from the Lions game of like a Thanksgiving plate? Like, did you guys have hors d'oeuvres sitting out there, snacks, or hors d'oeuvre sounds pretty fancy, like pre food? Anything that happens?
Yeah, we actually had our Thanksgiving on Sunday because my wife worked on Thanksgiving, so we had all the kids over on Sunday. We let them go do their stuff with their significant others, and then hey, come hang out with us on Sunday. So yeah, we had deviled eggs, like a buffalo chicken dip, meats and cheeses.
There you go.
Yeah, so that was our that was our barely a podcast, Bear and Balanced.
Yeah, a couple deviled eggs, some charcuterie, or meat and cheese, right? I mean, again, using fancy words, not everybody's into that. So, have you shared everything? Are you ready?
I'm close enough. I'm almost there. See, okay. I have Blue Sky now, so I got to make sure I'm on the Blue Sky because.
Yeah, I still want to call it Blue Ski. It's just really hard for me to not want to call it that. But yeah, what are you gonna do? All right, well I'm gonna launch in for us, and then you catch up here. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus. On the other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Chicago Bears lost another heartbreaker, but they won on Black Friday by firing Matt Eberflus. How you doing?
Yeah, I feel like that was the what it had to happen that way, right? It had to happen that way for the Bears to realize, especially with all the stuff that came up on the Athletic, right? How the locker room was gone after the Commanders game. It's like, seriously, that was a month ago, and the Bears haven't won a game since. It's like, what are they doing internally? What is the McCaskey family doing internally to where it took this? It took 5 straight embarrassments, right, to have something finally happen.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the moment against the Commanders after that game. Like we talked about the failure that happened as a coach in the moment, like not taking the timeout, saying that the 13 yards before the Hail Mary was a worthless play. It doesn't matter, that play doesn't matter at all. And then to not use your timeout, like just timeouts. He had 2 left on that game. Repeatedly making mistakes on the field, and then in the press conference afterwards, and then doubling down the next day, not taking accountability, kind of pushing the players under the bus. Very weird. We called it out. A lot of people didn't like how much we talked about it. They, kind of called us out on social media or in our articles and stuff. Said, "Oh, you guys don't deserve anything," or blah, blah, blah. This is why we talked about it.
Yeah.
Because it matters, right? Like a head coach in particular needs to understand how to use the media to his advantage. Sometimes you're talking to the fans through the media, but a lot of times you're talking to your players through the media. The great ones have always been good at that. They know how to do that. You know who else was really good at that? It's George Halas. George Halas was really good at understanding how to use the media to motivate his players, to talk through the media to his fans, all that stuff. There needs to be a class for any head coach of the Chicago Bears to understand how to use the media. They're not your enemy. They're a tool, right? And he continued to fail at that. I think he thought that they were trying to get him, some sort of gotcha type of approach. I really don't think that that's what it is. I think the media is asking hard questions when you make a mistake, and the only response is to own it. otherwise, it gets back to the players that you're not willing to take accountability for your mistakes while you're asking them to take accountability for theirs.
Yeah, some of the stuff he said, throughout his whole tenure, right, it merely made it look like he didn't trust his team. It didn't trust his players. He had the comment about how he's afraid to fumble, right, in the one game, and so
It's
it's
the
like,
Packers.
yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like this is who he's continually shown the Bears to be. He lost the locker room finally in the Washington game. It just took a few more games for Bears brass to get fully on board, and like I said, this Lions game. I was watching it again today, a rewatch, and I'm like, man, this is a pretty impressive comeback. But like we said on the pre-show, like it's like this had to happen. I mean, this had to happen to finally kick Flus to the curb, and so this is the catalyst to get the entire franchise on a good track. So be it.
Yeah, it's rare that you get such a clear demonstration of games lost because of head coaching decisions. And head coaching decisions that are fairly easy. These are not complex things where it's like, well, the advanced analytics say that you should go for 2 here, and there was none of that. They were just bad decisions, and there were things that every coach should know how to do. They should know how to use timeouts. They should know how to use challenges. All those things, right? Just repeatedly making those same mistakes over and over. Again, at some point, maybe you can forgive a couple of those. You can't forgive as many as he's had, particularly in a year where you're going to compete. And then you certainly cannot let him off the hook for not taking accountability. Finally, George McCaskey, I assume, relented and said, "Okay, guys, I'm going to go with you." Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren pulled the trigger and made the change. Thomas Brown's now the interim head coach. He gets an opportunity from passing game coordinator to offensive coordinator to now interim head coach. He has 5 games to kind of show what he has to go into interview season. But we will have plenty more about head coaching searches, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be really important. We don't want to like gloss over that, but we got to get to the game. We got to talk about this game.
There was a
We always
game,
start.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a game here. We both went back and watched it. We found some stuff that we found interesting. We start in the trenches in this show. What'd you see on the lines that you liked?
I thought the first half was obviously terrible. I mean, like
Bad.
it just was bad all over around. But there were some nice stand-up performances from the guys up front. I'm going to do it the same as I did last week. I'm going to go Darnell Wright. I thought he had a pretty good game. I don't think he allowed a pressure the whole game. He was pretty solid in his run blocking as well. It's unfortunate he had that injury. He had to be carted off, and we have not had an update yet. Which again, this was way back on Thursday, so I'm sure whatever was wrong with him has been fully diagnosed by now. Thomas Brown did say at his press conference today that they will get a update on Wednesday when they have the normal injury update. So I'm hoping it's not too much. Josh Sunderbrunch, who does some work for us, more analytics kind of stuff. He did crunch some numbers and looked at some Darnell Wright, where he is as a player. He used a few analytics, Pro Football Focus. I think one of the SIS, I think he used also to track some blocking numbers there. And that article comes out tomorrow morning, and Wright's, he is much better than I thought he was as far as the pure numbers go. I thought he was pretty good, and I thought he was an ascending player, but the numbers bear out that he's not only a pretty good player, he's one of the better, from his class, one of the better tackles playing right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good football player, and we talk about him a lot because, well, he's a premium pick,
Yeah.
and he's someone that we certainly care about, and he's a cornerstone of this offensive line. He's going to be here for a while. I think the thing about Wright is that he is sometimes unfairly wrapped up into this conversation about Jalen Carter, who's obviously a very good football player, but had the off the field issues that clearly Ryan Poles did not want to bring into this locker room. And you can say that was, a good thing or a bad thing, whatever. I'm not going to judge there, but the Bears absolutely needed someone on the offensive line. Certainly with that pick, you're going to pick a tackle. Wright is a right tackle. It fits with having Braxton Jones on the roster. I think when they've both been in there has been a lot more stability to that offensive line.
Yeah.
The interior has been, its own issue, but having those guys back, you can see this huge difference. Really hope that he's okay because, his replacement had some issues. Certainly, we don't want to see that, or maybe Borum can get up to speed and play a little better if he's starting the game or something. But he certainly had some issues filling in there. I did want to make sure that we at least gave a little bit of love to the offensive line because they did help allow that comeback in the second half. I wanted to give mine though to Austin Booker. He only played 14 snaps. This is a rookie. He still has a long way to go to being a contributor, but he recorded a half a sack. And what's exciting to me is that he recorded a half a sack on Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
Which we had to talk about that. They ran a reverse pass to Penei Sewell, their all-world right tackle, I think he lined up on the left and then came around to the right to make the throw easier. He decided to not throw, and he got sacked for a 1-yard loss. And it was Booker and Sanborn that shared the sack. I mean, all right. So, Lester, I got to say this. You played tackle. I doubt I've seen you throw the football. There's no way that they were going to let you throw this. But let's pretend that you had my arm, and they said, Lester, we're going to run this play. We're gonna run a reverse and a pass, and we've got 2 guys in the route, high low, throw it. You're throwing that ball, right?
Yeah, I'm throwing that ball.
There's no way you're tucking it and trying to you're not taking a sack. Like you're.
Penei Sewell showed great restraint in pulling that back. High football IQ from him. That was obviously the correct play. But yeah, I mean, Austin Booker's a good choice. I mean, he has flashed every now and again this whole season. I saw him in coverage a couple times. Something that Flus and I'm guessing Eric Washington may continue doing these next few weeks is they'll do the zone blitz. They'll drop their lineman back. But with a guy like Booker, great athlete. I think he's a guy that's fine. You want to drop him in coverage every now and again. And it kind of bodes well to, we will talk a little future. If they do go to a 3-4 base defense at some point, Booker's a guy that can, rush out of a 2-point stance. He has the speed and athleticism to probably drop on occasion. So Booker's a keeper.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously they used a pick in next year's draft to trade back in to get him. He's a guy that came out a little early, I think, for personal reasons. He wanted to get into the pros. He probably could have used another year in college and put some more film out there. And I think a lot of people projected him to be able to raise his draft stock quite a bit if he was able to do that. And so, even if you think about it, well, the Bears used next year's 4th on this guy. Okay, like that's fine. You got a free year. He's in the building. He's got a year of strength and conditioning. I think that it's going to help him actually be a legitimate contributor next year. I'm really excited to see where he goes. Like you say, athleticism out, to the gills. It's great. All right, let's get into our social media section. Changing that, we got to change the name of it because we're bouncing back and forth between the two. I wanted to highlight our guy, Funky Cold Luda, Luis Medina, who runs Bleacher Bears. He says he's at Funky Cold Luis on the Blue Sky. It says 2 flags on wide receivers on this drive. Ben Johnson is definitely ready to be the Bears' next head coach. Very funny, tongue in cheek there. But I wanted to talk about, again, we're going to talk a lot about, head coaching search here. The favorite name, I think for me, for sure, is Ben Johnson. And I think a lot of Bears fans share that sentiment. And, for fans that maybe don't watch all the football and maybe haven't watched the Lions and games that they're not playing the Bears, what is attractive to you about Ben Johnson in terms of what he potentially could bring to this franchise?
All the games of Detroit that I've watched, he seems like a guy that he really knows how to utilize the players on his offense. Like we talked about Penei Sewell, the reverse pass, right? That was just that was cute. That is what it is. That was him trying to stick it to the Bears early and just kind of send a message that, hey, we don't respect you guys. Here we go. But he moves Penei Sewell around that offensive line quite a bit. He brings him in motion. He uses him on a kick out block. He uses obviously both his tailbacks in unique ways. He knows how to use them. He's not trying to run Montgomery on the stretch plays. He knows who David Montgomery is, right? He understands his personnel use. He's got Jared Goff to where Jared Goff is now, he's much better than he was early on in his career with Sean McVay. He just kept ascending that and making him a better football player. Yes, he has a pretty good offensive line to work with, but he utilizes his talent. We've seen it with Williams, St. Brown, moves those guys around the offense. He's from the Adam Gase school of offensive football, which is kind of strange to hear. Yeah, it's odd because the Bears had Gase in the building for a year, went on to be a head coach, and now of course all the memes with him looking a little spaced out. Yeah, it's Adam Gase. I don't think he's been in football the last few years, but that's where Ben Johnson originally got to start. But his offense now is completely his offense. Like, I'm not sure you can kind of track that and say, oh, it's a Gase offense. I mean, that's not what it is. His is his offense. He's made it his own. He caters to his talent, and I think he is definitely going to be the top candidate from all NFL openings this offseason.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up in terms of getting a lot out of his players, right? So you have a very interesting career trajectory in a guy like Jared Goff, who played his rookie season under Jeff Fisher, was terrible. Jeff Fisher gets fired, and then Sean McVay comes in and he plays pretty good football. He's somewhat limited, but like pretty good football. They get to a Super Bowl. Obviously, the Bears, Vic Fangio kind of showed the blueprint of taking out McVay's offense. Belichick copied that, reinvented his defense for that Super Bowl and shut him down. And so you kind of saw after that the Rams were like, well, we need somebody that's a little better. They trade to the Lions for Stafford. They win the Super Bowl. And the Lions, though, they're like, no, we believe in this guy. We can build around him. And Ben Johnson, it's rare to go from a guy like McVay, who's obviously a very good offensive coach, one of the best in the league. And this guy says, yeah, I can work with this guy. And he continues to improve during his time in Detroit to where he's running a high powered offense. I mean, that offense is really good.
Yeah.
And then the other thing you said, yes, I think it's good to note that, hey, he's using David Montgomery in the right way. Hey, he's using Jahmyr Gibbs in the right way. He's using these different skill sets in the way that works for them, which is something that we have been screaming about for the Bears to use for their different wide receivers and their different weapons that they have brought in. But you mentioned Penei Sewell, right? He's a weapon. He is an incredible football player. And what it reminds me of is understanding that, like, Jason Kelce, the Eagles' former center, how much of a weapon he could be in the run game. It's not common to see a center be able to pull out and really influence the run game like Kelce did, but they figured that out in Philadelphia and they use that to their advantage. So understanding that all of your guys can be thought of that way, and they're using Penei Sewell in that way too. So, that translates. I've seen a lot of people be like, well, is his offense going to work without an elite offensive line like they have in Detroit? Well, in my opinion, it's not about that he has an elite offensive line and therefore all these things work. It's that he understands what he can do with what he has.
Yeah, I mean, Sewell plays right tackle. They're on their second string left tackle. They've had some injuries in the last few years. I think they missed Ragnow for a chunk of time there, but that offense just keeps clicking. I mean, that's Ben Johnson. A lot of it is just he empowers his guys. He like we talk about Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff was a guy. I mean, he was sent to Detroit basically for, it was just a throw in. It was like because they had getting Stafford. They had no use for Goff. And like you said, everyone thought Goff was just a guy who was going to be there for a year and just be gone. And that's not what happened there. Ben Johnson empowered him and coached him up, and they got the best out of him. And now, I mean, Detroit loves Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff chance breaks out at hockey games. It breaks out at wrestling events. I mean, why are they chanting Jared Goff all the time? I don't get it, but they love him. They've empowered Goff to be their guy, and that's one of the team leaders.
He might win him a Super Bowl this year. That's how good that team is. What about you? What do you have?
So like I said, we talked about the game a little bit last week. So there was a lot of news since then. So my tweet's actually about today's events, the press conferences. It's from David Haw at David Haw. Walking out of House Hall, legitimately wondering how the Bears organization can have so much evidence dealing with crises, yet remain such novices managing them. That naivety truly impacts everything they do. And of course, we go back to letting Flus talk right at 9 a.m. while they're still having meetings. Just they do these little stupid things, and they've done for the last, pretty much all of our Bears fandom. This is what the Bears do. And like how I was saying, how do they not get better at this? I know they brought in Terry Crews from the Chiefs, who is one of the PR guys. He has something to do with the operation stuff, and hopefully he will help guide this organization to the modern era, because they just do so much stupid things.
I When we did the Barely a Podcast, you were under the impression that Eberflus thought he was still employed at that point, and I thought that he was already fired, and then he just went on and pretended like he was just like they're like, "Hey, we're not ready to announce this yet." But no, they were so it's like, did they have to wait for George to like get up and do his calisthenics and drink a cup of coffee and take a shower and drive to Lake Forest? Like what were they waiting for that they couldn't have this all hammered out by the time the 9 a.m. Zoom call happened? And if that's like on the table, push the call.
Yeah.
Like you have to know that that's happening, right? Or somebody's got to tell like, hey, we got to get Flus up on this 9 a.m. call. Is that cool? Because the weird thing was that it didn't start on time, and then there was just this like delay. So that was what was tripping me up, was that they didn't send the link out right away, and the beat reporters were making a big deal about that, and it felt a little bit like, oh, there's something going on, and maybe Flus he knew it, but he just went through the motions and then went and told his coaches and stuff. I just couldn't believe that they didn't take care of it. which is on me. Like that's a shame on me situation, because I should know that this team does stuff like that, right? Like this franchise can't figure that out. But I mean, I would have assumed that this would have been taken care of the night before, but it sounds like George maybe needed to sleep on it. And then there you go. Like, but even sleep on it. It's a 9 a.m. Zoom call. So what time does George McCaskey get up? Is he a night owl? Is that what we have to assume? Does he have to get like 2 shots of espresso in his system before he could make a decision? Like, I just don't, the lack of urgency out of George McCaskey and in this situation just was surprising to me.
What blows me away is for an organization that seems to always be cognizant of saving face, right? Like they're always trying to do the right thing. They're always trying to, oh, we have to do this because we can't tip our hand and show that we're going to fire Flus. So let's just go ahead and let them speak at 9. I mean, that's the big thing, where it's like it makes them look worse to do that. They were being clowned by all the TV shows, Fox, CBS. I mean, every single channel, every game. Like I was watching Red Zone, right? And during the Red Zone clips, every now and then the Bears would get brought up. Late game blunder, right? Or something like that happens. Oh, this is like with on Thanksgiving with Eberflus. And it's just always something. So this organization cannot get out of its own way. Hopefully Kevin Warren can kind of guide them through that. We'll see.
I'll say again, I don't feel bad for Matt Eberflus in that we had to cover this guy for 2.5 years. And I think we saw this coming from a mile away. We talked about this, but like I pulled up a article that I wrote after week 1 of last year where I was just like out on him, and nothing has happened since then. But the word that I am coming back to is pilloried. He is being pilloried in the media. I mean, it is public ridicule right now. It's coming from everywhere. So in that way, poor guy. Hopefully hopefully he figures it out and can dry his tears on the stacks of Benjamins in his free time. But I'm sure it's unfortunate for him that every time he turns on a TV, he's going to hear something derogatory for at least a few weeks, probably. Let's move on to Caleb's corner. Caleb Williams, rough start to this game. At one point, he was 5 for 15. Finished the game 20 of 39 for 256 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Took 5 sacks for 33 yards lost, scrambled 4 times for 39 yards. So overall, what would you say stuck out to you about Caleb's performance?
Yeah, it's the second half. I mean, him and the Bears offense did nothing in the first half. I think they ran 11 total plays. It might have been, he threw for 222 yards in the second half, all 3 of those touchdowns. All 5 sacks also came in the second half, but that's because he was back to trying to make a play. I mean, I was watching the game, and there was a early in the third quarter, there was like a 3rd and 15 play. Watching live, and like I didn't give it any thought. Rewatching, I'm like, that's a huge play. He took the snap, went to the top of his drop, nothing was there, kind of moved around the pocket, scrambled, and then he threw a dart to Keenan Allen for like a 17-yard gain on a 3rd and 15. He made these little plays where obviously the flashes were there, but the other ones where you're like that's a routine play for him. That's something he does now. And it's like, I just can't wait to see his ascension, because it is coming. Thomas Brown has done a really nice job with him, since he took over, and he looks like the guy that we all thought he'd be when he was drafted.
Yeah, I mean, the last drive started at the Chicago 1.
-1. It was terrible. Yeah.
I mean, it was like, it was that guy's foot, the back of the cleat looked like it was on the white, but okay, whatever. It wasn't, according to the officials. So it starts at the 1-yard line, and they, drove it down to have a chance. Like, everything was not easy against Detroit's a good team, and you're playing in Detroit. Like, they know how to, work the crowd that's incredibly loud when the Bears are on offense, and still they were able to almost make the full comeback. I thought it was really impressive. Some really good things were just called back on penalties too, right? Like, there was a few things, especially early. There were a couple of passes that got called back from penalties. This team continues to bite itself, but I thought overall, given that I've watched a lot of Lions games, I was really impressed with that second half, right? Like that was, I don't think any other quarterback has thrown for more than 1 touchdown against them. And they've been turning the ball over a lot. They've been getting a lot of turnovers on defense, and Caleb was again able to get out of a game without throwing one. I'm sure there's going to be people out there, well, there was 2 or 3 that should have been picked off. I'm going to continue to come back to, that's why those guys play defense.
Yeah.
And shoulda, woulda, coulda doesn't count, right? That's the other way too. Like, Goff threw a couple right at some of the Bears, and they didn't pick them off. So it is what it is. He didn't get unlucky with any tips. There was 1 tip ball that was a dart to DJ, right? I mean, that's a catch he makes 9 out of 10 times, bounced up. I thought, oh, there it is. That's going to be an interception. It wasn't. Fell to the ground, outstretched arms from the free safety. But that helped extend his streak. He now owns the record, most passes by a rookie without an interception. It's at 232. And I just wanted to mention that if for some amazing reason he continues this streak, which I do not think is possible, right? Like, just stars aligned, all that kind of stuff. He's got the record for the rookie record. That's really cool. But let's just say, for the sake of conversation, hey, the league record is Aaron Rodgers, 402 passes. Take the amount of the passes that he's been averaging over the last few games and play it out, and he has a chance to break the league record in Green Bay in week 18 if things kind of stay steady in terms of attempts. Now, again, he's got to get through 4 games without throwing 4 more games without throwing a pick. Almost impossible. Like, it's just like, this streak is amazing. It's already praiseworthy, but I was just kind of playing the math out. It's possible that he could break it by the end of the year in Green Bay, which that'd be pretty cool.
You're jinxing him. You know that, right?
Oh, whatever. I put that tweet out. Okay. So I get that I was the one that was on it. Like, I was the one that put that out there. I don't see any evidence that anybody had this before me, that he could break the rookie record for most attempts without an interception. And then like 50 comments, and 35 of them were telling me that I jinxed him before. Like, guys, I'm just the guy with an internet connection. Yeah. And then there was a bunch of like negative comments, just trying to bash Caleb, whatever. And then there were some Lions fans that found it, and they were saying Kirby Joseph was going to get one. But I don't have any impact. I'm just the guy with an internet connection. Like, there's no, I can do no jinxing. That let's just put that out there.
Do you know what the Bears record is for a consecutive pass without a pick?
I do not. What is it?
I don't know. We should look that up because that's
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 probably,
definitely
it's not
something.
402.
It's
And
not 402. Yeah, so I think it's
so what,
that maybe when he's getting close to. So we'll have to get one of our stat head guys to kind of dig in that and see what that record is.
he might even have it. Who knows? I mean, just
He might. Yeah.
yeah, who knows? Who knows at this point? Yeah. Anyway, I think NBC ripped me off, but whatever.
It's all
It
right.
happens.
But yeah,
Stat guy.
at least all the networks finally figured out that it was Chuck and Charlie had the record.
That's true.
At least they finally caught on, and they stopped crediting him already with it. They acknowledged that he passed the touchdown for rookie record, so that was good to see.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on to stats. Caught up in a numbers game. What number did you have to share with us today, Instructor Wilt Fong?
I got two numbers. My numbers are 12 and 19. And I
Okay.
actually got these off our guy, Bill Zimmerman, who you can find at Bill T. Zimmerman and all his socials. So since Thomas Brown took over calling plays, Caleb Williams is 12th in EPA per play, which is expected points added. And he's also 19th in expected points added / CPOE composite, which is a completion percentage over expected. So he's 12th and 19th there. The previous 3 weeks, he was 32nd in the NFL. So in these 3 games that Thomas Brown has really had a hand in calling the play, scheming things up, running his offense, the improvement in Caleb has been night and day.
Absolutely. Those are really great numbers, really great splits, as you say. And then, I saw like Doug Farrar was saying something similar on the socials. He was talking about how much better Caleb has been under Thomas Brown. And I pointed out, like, yeah, and that was against Packers, Vikings, and Lions,
Yeah.
as opposed to before that, where it was a much easier slate, right? That's the other thing, is the degree of difficulty in these last 3 games has been much, much higher than it
His
was.
numbers against these NFC North foes are phenomenal.
It's so much better, and those teams are much better. Like that's what's just blowing my mind, right? Like, and so even more evidence that this team broke because of that Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And it broke. And yes, they got out of the gate slow. I think we all kind of forgave that because of September football and all the moving pieces and everything's new and the rookie quarterback and all that. But coming out of the break, just not having anything going until late against Washington and then breaking, and that Arizona game, the New England game, that is as bad as you can get. So I love it. Good stuff from Bill. My stat, I feel like I'm burying Flus here now that I'm coming back to my notes, but it is what it is. We're going to roll with it. 20%. That is what he ends his career as a Chicago Bears head coach in terms of challenges. This was something that people loved to just criticize him on challenges. Now, there's a couple of things to say about this. One is that a lot of these calls are now being reviewed instantly that would have taken a challenge years ago. So like some of these things he was either saved from challenging for good or for bad. Okay. So there's a little bit of that, like these aren't as easy to win as they used to be. Let me put it that way. I'm not trying to let him off the hook, but then I know there's plenty of times where he didn't challenge something that it would have made sense to challenge. It was particularly early on. It seemed like he didn't take the chances, and then he sort of was going over it too much. So I went back and looked at the challenges that he did challenge, and some of them I agreed with. We talked about one recently where the ball was moving. That big Christian Watson catch. That made sense. The one along the sidelines where he never said, "I thought he stepped out," which, like, I'm going to assume that's why he challenged it and not just because it was an explosive play.
That's what he said. He said in his presser, "I was a
I
big
know
play.
it was an
Worth a shot."
explosive, so you have to challenge it. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But like, let's assume he said, like, "I thought he stepped out and I wanted to see," or whatever. But the 2 challenges that he won, are you ready for this? He won spot challenges on quarterback scrambles. So so he so player Bajent on one and Fields on the other were ruled short of the line to gain, and he challenged and won those. So they were 1 yard challenge overturns. Those were that's his career in terms of challenges.
Did he at least get the first down in those, or just made
Yeah,
close?
yeah, they're first
Okay,
downs. Yeah, yeah.
okay, hey.
Well, I think like otherwise, because I think you're challenging the line to gain. You're
Oh
not
yeah, that's
challenging
true.
like the
That's true.
spot. Uh, anyway, I
That's
don't
awful.
know. A lot of people like to kill him for that, and I went back. I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad. 2 out of 10 is pretty bad. Um, let's just close the book to he finishes his Chicago Bears career at 14-32. He has the uh, third worst head coaching percentage record in the history of Chicago Bears coaches. He finishes 2 losses short, I guess, of John Fox, who was 14-34. So he had two more games. Obviously, didn't have the 17th game when Fox was around. So his winning percentage, Flus's winning percentage was 304. Fox is at 292. And then poor old Abe Gibron was 11-30-1, which is like a 274 winning percentage. So poor Abe is still the worst. But we were talking about this a little bit with Bill Zimmerman, and it's hard for me to not say that Flus was the worst coach that I've seen, because he had a more talented roster this year and found a way to lose so many games. Whereas I think John Fox just didn't have a very talented roster for his duration. They were just kind of building it up. Not to give him a pass. And then Trestman, had some success early and then flamed out really quick. So I mean, which pot of terrible do you want to grade more? But for me, just this feels just a little bit worse because of so much of a lack of understanding of some kind of the basics of game management and situational football that I just was shocked that a head coach wouldn't have a grasp of.
So we're talking worst all time, right? It's
Yeah, all time.
like Abe Gibron's a little before my time. I don't recall that. I've had older Bears fans tell me that he was a pretty bad era. But again, we're talking about talent. He didn't have a lot of talent early on. So it comes to me, it's either Trestman or Flus. In-game management, Trestman was better, right? Locker room stuff. Before this recent stuff that came out, right? I would have thought it was Trestman. His locker room, he lost the locker room. Flus now had lost a locker room. He lost it a month ago, and it kept getting worse and worse. We saw him with deer in the headlight looks at the end of the Lions game. He just kind of stood there looking around. That was the normal look for Eberflus at the end of games. He froze, right? I mean, there's a great case to be made that Eberflus is the worst head coach in Chicago Bears history because he did everything bad. I mean, there was nothing he did good. I mean, the hits philosophy, it worked at first, right? It helped kind of set the tone. It gave people an expectation of what he wants out of the team. The fact that he changed from takeaways to the ball was like nails on a chalkboard, but it is what it is. But it worked for a while. But like we've talked about, that kind of stuff, that that the meatball, the corny stuff, that works when you're winning. It works when you have a scheme to match it. It does not work when you're a moron. And Flus showed he was a moron, not just this year. He had those 4 blown games last year, right? And then his first year he had a couple too where he had no talent, but you got to look at the body of work and his end game management. He has snatched so many losses when it should have been wins during his Bears tenure, where I think he is probably the worst ever.
Yeah, it's one of those where maybe we're glossing over the fact that Mark Trestman Bears got double dipped 50 burgered, right? Like those were some bad moments in Bears history, but there was nothing that, and so maybe say, well, they lost those during the week. They had lost the locker room already, or they were out coached before they even got onto the field. And maybe some of that's true, but it just is so crystallized to me that there are very obvious coaching decisions that you make. I want to see good football. Like, let's see what is the right answer when you are giving your players the chances to make plays and finish games out. And we were robbed of that so many times in this era. And it kept happening. It kept happening. And then he would just deny it. And I felt like I was taking crazy pills. Like it just did not make sense to me that again, I'm just a guy with an internet connection. I'm just a guy sitting on my couch watching these games. I shouldn't know more than the head coach of the Chicago Bears on how to manage football games. Like, either they got to hire somebody and put them up in the booth and to help them. And if they do have somebody that's helping him, that guy needs to get fired too. Or this guy's just doesn't get it. He's just a defensive coordinator and wasn't ready for that role. So that's probably enough. We can probably stop talking about him. He's gone. We won't drag him, through the rest of the year. We'll focus on the last 5 games, but it's cathartic. Like, there's something like having to cover this for, like, again, I've spent so much time going through this stuff, and you just think you're going crazy. Like that's how it makes you feel. So anyway,
The worst part about it is he would double down, right?
yes.
And he would double down and say, "Oh no, that was the right play. That was the right
Am I
call.
wrong? Do
I
I
do
not
it again."
know how
Like, no.
timeouts work? What is this? Okay. We'll take a quick break, but before that, our friends from Underdog have a message.
What is Underdog Fantasy? It is the place to play if you are a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won. Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances, competing against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats. You can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. You think Caleb Williams will get higher than 200 passing yards against the Niners? Niners are a lot of injuries over there. I know the Niners are favored, but I mean, I would not be surprised the dead cat bounce helps out here and the Bears pull out a nice big statistical performance in San Fran. So you cook up some entries for a shot to win real cash prizes all football season long. Underdog is the best place to play champion. So sign up and deposit now using promo code CITY. That's our promo code CITY, and you'll get $1,000 bonus cash instantly. You can also play Red Zone Rush, which is a game you won't find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a touchdown by swiping right or left. It's easy as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted with a 51% profit boost. Underdog is fun and simple. And this week, it's, again, like I said, Niners. I think you got to go higher on Caleb, right? I think that's the play here. Keenan Allen looked good lately. I think Keenan Allen, maybe higher on Keenan Allen. Swift's been down, right, the last few weeks. Let's see what happens there with DeAndre Swift. But for me, I think I'm going Keenan, Caleb, higher. And did you know you can win 1,000 times your money? Again, choosing higher, lower, passing yards and interceptions and touchdowns and all the other stats as well. Just download the app today and use our code CITY to get $1,000 bonus cash. Promo code CITY. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog. And now the fun stuff must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Are you concerned when you play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, that's 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, you call the 20% HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or you can text HOPE-NY 467369.
Lovely. You did it once again. Well done.
Did it.
Quick break. Other side of this, 3 Bears. All right, Lester, the 3 Bears, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. Who'd you have for the hot bowl?
My hot bowl is this week. He's been doing this for the last few weeks, right? But I want to make sure I mention him here. So safety Kevin Byard, right, led the games in tackles with 10. So he has now led or tied for the team leading tackles in 4 of the last 5 games.
That's not good necessarily.
That's not good, but for him, on a personal level, he's performing much better than I thought as far as the stats go. But like you said, you do not want your safety leading your team in tackles. That shows there's a problem up front. That shows that the defensive play caller may not be as good as some fans think he is. Because if you lose Andrew Billings and your whole run defense goes to shit, that's a problem. That's not just a one-player thing. That's a scheme thing. Get creative. Do something. Of course, this week, the Bears are going to have Eric Washington calling plays. So let's see what kind of juice he brings to that defense.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where a few years ago, we gave Akeem Hicks the uh, best defensive player on the team award in one of our postseason pods. And it was because he got hurt and the team really suffered after he left. And so it was like, well, in his absence, this team is much worse. Therefore, he was the best player, not Khalil Mack, which is not like my argument, but that's like I was outruled 2-1. So okay. We apparently need to bring that back for Andrew Billings because once he's been out of the lineup, the Bears can't stop the run. They're just getting gashed. It's crazy. So yeah, uh, I like Kevin Byard a lot. I think he's a good football player. I think it was a nice signing. I think that that veteran presence. I don't know what his contract was. Was that a 1-year deal or was that multiple years?
I think I might have had a
Um,
2-year deal.
okay. Well, I hope
I
he
like
comes
him.
back.
He's a good player.
I hope he comes back. He's a good player. I hope that he is is bought in to what we're trying to do here and wants to come back because he's a good football player and he's more than welcome to come back. So, he has not disappointed me in the least. For me, a guy that I don't think will come back, but I wanted to shout out here, and that is Keenan Allen. 5 catches, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns in this one. Hey, 18 catches for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns with Thomas Brown over the last 3 games. He knows how to use Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
This is what we were expecting Keenan Allen to be this whole year. I don't know what tape Shane Waldron was watching that he thought he could use Keenan Allen, I don't know, like a 23-year-old guy to stretch the field and whatever the heck he was doing. But he's running like that little juke route, or I don't know what you would call it, but that little juke route where he scored, I think, his second touchdown, where he kind of made a move and then faked like he was going to break out and then came back in. He's wide open. That's a beautiful route. That's a fun route. It takes a long ass time to develop. So he can't be the first read, right? Like that, like, or you have to have good protection. And so knowing how to use Keenan Allen and where he's at in the progression and all that, it seems like they're finally figured it out. And you got to give credit to Thomas Brown there, but this is great. Like, I think a lot of us were kind of burying Keenan Allen saying he's old, he's washed, and he doesn't have a place on this field anymore. Over 3 games, 18 catches, 200 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's absolutely great return on a guy like Keenan Allen.
He has mentioned recently that if he keeps playing, he wants to play either back in LA, which there's 2 teams now, or in Chicago. I mean, maybe he's just saying it because that's his current team in Chicago, but I don't know, man. The more I watch him play, the more I see what value he brings. I would not be opposed to the Bears re-signing him. Obviously, he's not going to make $20 million in next year. It's going to be a much lower contract. But I also look at his body work this season. He's battled through some foot injuries. Maybe his conditioning is not where it should be because he can't run as much as he would like. Maybe that's giving him an issue because he does look a little bigger than usual. There's been some guys.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. So maybe there's an issue there with conditioning as far as not being exactly where he wants to be. But like you said, I mean, he has good hands still. He's making the plays. He has been productive these last few weeks. And if he comes back as the number 3, as the slot guy, because Rome, I think, we all agree is going to be your starter with DJ next year. Keenan comes back on a fairly team-friendly deal because you need 3 receivers in the NFL. You have to have a third. That's just what it is. You run so many 3 receiver sets. It's a passing league. You have to have 3 guys there. And if Keenan does go, you don't have a 3. So let's see what happens as the year ends out. Maybe he really likes what's going on here with the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, you can pay a little bit for that leadership. You can't pay a lot for it,
Yeah.
right? Like, you kind of already have. So if he wants to stick around at like a nice veteran deal, but nothing crazy, like then that makes some sense. But I'm a huge Keenan Allen fan. As you know, Lester, my favorite AFC team is the Chargers. I've always followed them since the Breeze Tomlinson draft. Just, I don't know, it just kind of hooked me as a team to root for that has nothing to do with the Bears. And so I've been a big Keenan Allen fan for a long time. It's been a lot of fun to watch him on the Bears, but particularly last 3 weeks because they finally figured out what he is and how to use him. And I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back either. I think everybody's just kind of been shutting that door. But if he finishes out the year strong, he's got a good connection with Caleb. I think there's a decent chance. Let's flip it around. Cold bowl of porridge. no shortage of this either, but who you got?
We kind of touched on it earlier, but I wanted to make sure, just in case we didn't have a chance to talk earlier, I want to touch on George McCaskey. And like you said, him just kind of sleeping on the whole, like what are we doing here? They apparently had a team meeting after the game. So there was already something was already in the works, right? Where they were trying to do it. So did they have to convince George to sign off on this? I
Probably.
am not a fan of George McCaskey. I've written about it several times. I've talked about it several times. What is he doing here? And then at the press conference today, Ryan Poles was asked, are they going to hire a consulting firm to go through the head coaching thing? He said nothing has been determined at this time, but you got to think George wants to hire a consultant again, right? Because that's what George does. He has to hire someone, tell him how to do his job all the time because he sucks at his job. So George McCaskey, please let your guys run the team and just go somewhere and sit down and relax and just kind of enjoy the spoils of it if it works.
I'm smiling because you had a more colorful explanation of what George McCaskey hires consultants for in a DM earlier, and
Oh, I
so
did.
we're not gonna share that on the show, but it was quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I feel like I've been beating up George McCaskey quite a bit lately, and I think deservedly so. I used to be of the mindset of, hey, he stays out of the way. That's better than a lot of owners. Like, why are we complaining about George McCaskey? But sometimes an owner does need to do something, right?
Yeah.
And an owner does need to come in and have influence and push things. But I think what has bothered me is that I can't get over that report from Brad Biggs that said it wasn't a 4-year contract for Flus. It was a 5-year contract for Flus. And once that came out, there was no doubt in my mind that George McCaskey was going to fire Flus last year. There's no way he was going to pay out 3 years. And some people share that same sentiment that I trust. And I will say that I feel incredibly confident about that. There's some people that want to blow up Flus's spot because they say, hey, he wanted him back. He wanted Flus back. He has to carry some of that. I just don't think it was on the table. I do not think that George McCaskey was going to pay out 3 years. I think it's impressive that he's paying out 2 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think he didn't have a choice. I think Warren and Poles came to him and was like, this is it, man. Locker room's lost. You can't play with this. You can't play with this. You hopefully you learned your lesson back in the Trestman days when you take this to the end and bench Jay Cutler in the last week of the year so that the Bears still don't have a 4,000-yard passer because of it, right? So I completely agree with you. He should absolutely get a double helping. I should just double this up, and maybe we do that. I had Larry Borum written down just because, and I kind of already mentioned it, but I mean, he looked lost. I don't know how you can look that lost in relief. And so, what's happening there, Larry? Like, I don't know. I know he's not going to be on the team much longer, but you gotta come up in the spot, man. Just
Well, the play that stands out to everyone's mind is, of course, that the last sack where
yeah,
it did look like a quarterback draw was called, which I kind of understood it in the moment. The middle was wide open, but it wasn't blocked very well, and Borum got nothing on his guy. So it's like he just kind of let him go, and it's like Larry Borum, when the Bears drafted Darnell Wright, got a little salty on social media.
Yep.
So ever since then, I'm kind of like, yeah, this is who he is, right? This is the kind of guy he is. I think he thinks higher of himself than what he actually is. So I think he's definitely a guy that's going to move on. He got the huge performance escalator this year. We all thought he'd be cut because of the money, but the Bears, you need your own line, you need reserves. He has some experience. They held on to him, but he's not going to be in Chicago next year.
Yeah, that's just unfortunate to me that you have a spot and you don't step up for your team, even if you aren't happy. You're still pro. You still gotta step into that spot. So wanted to call that out. Last one, just right. What'd you get?
So I almost put this guy in the hot bowl category.
Okay.
But I'm going to go Javon Dexter Sr. He had another sack. He had, I think, 9-7 tackles, something like that. But
yeah,
a nice game from Javon Dexter. He's been one of the most consistent sack artist on the Bears this year. He's up to, I think, 5 or 6 now. He gets pressure every week. He shoots his gap. His run defense is still not exactly where it needs to be. But as far as a interior pass rusher, I think he's one of the better ones in the league right now.
I think he is leading the team with 5. I
Yeah.
think when I was looking at stats earlier, and apologies if I'm wrong on that, but I think he's at 5 and Sweat's at 4.5. And obviously Montez Sweat's been dealing with some injuries here. I mean, his snap percentage in this last game was pretty low. He's clearly fighting whatever ailment that he's working on. He's not as effective as you'd like to see Montez Sweat, but I think he's currently leading the team with 5, which good for Dexter, not so good for the Bears. That's going to be another year where the sack leader doesn't reach double digits, which is unfortunate. That's happened a lot in the last decade. Not a big fan of that. We coming off this like Robert Quinn setting the franchise record, and then we can't get was it who was the leader? Was Brisker the leader last year? Gordon the leader last year?
A couple years ago. Last year was Montez Sweat.
Last year was Sweat. Yeah, 2 years ago it was a DB. It was just anyway. But yeah, I had just right for Dexter as well. So I completely agree with you. I wanted to make sure we highlighted him. And I've been hard on his run defense, but if he's racking up tackles, then he's on the play, right? He's making plays. I think he definitely sees himself more as an interior disruptor pass rusher first and foremost, which those guys get paid. So I can see why you're maybe working on that part of your craft, but you got to be a complete player too. Hopefully he's taking steps in that direction. Good football player.
Yeah. And another guy we talk about how you can transition to a different defense. Dexter can easily play the 5-tech defense, and if the Bears do have a 3-4 style defense next year, but again, that whole defense thing, 3-4, 4-3 doesn't matter because you're a nickel 70% of the time these days. You're always playing with 4 down linemen. So what's the difference? That there's a huge discourse on social media, on message boards. People are really worried about this, and it's just not that big a deal these days. Teams can make the switch like that.
I mean, you are borrowing worry. Like, yeah, I mean, this is not something that one is not even like on the table yet.
Yeah.
And 2, you can make the switch pretty quick.
Easily.
And 3, the Bears have pretty good linebackers too, right? Yeah. Jack Sanborn's got to be on the field more. Oh, okay. Right. I mean, it's fine. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
No problem.
That's the least of your worries. The worry is to get the right head coach, and then everything else will be fine. No worries. I did want to mention good on Tyreek Stevenson for forcing that fumble. That was really huge in keeping them in the football game. That's a good hustle play, and wanted to make sure that the guy that has taken a lot of heat, and deservedly so, he had a really nice play there and really kept the Bears in it. That game was about to just be blown wide open and over, but he forced a fumble and kept him in it. Any final thoughts?
No, that's a good place to end it. A little love for Tyreek. If you think Tyreek will benefit from the coaching change,
I think Jalen Johnson might be the happiest from the firing, given his comments. I think that Tyreek Stevenson's probably not that far behind him.
Did you see the report? It was like a 15-minute tirade. You got to have a lot of anger built up if you're going to bitch for straight 15 minutes in the locker room.
I saw the report that it was a long tirade led by Jalen Johnson, who maybe others were joining in. It sounded like others were kind of piling on. And then that Flus just left.
He just left.
I mean, at some point, I think you just know, right? Like you're just like, okay, yeah, I'm out. I'm out, guys. Like, that's amazing. I mean, what would you give up? I mean, it doesn't have to be monetary, but like, what would you give up to have just been sitting on the wall?
Just a fly on the wall. Yeah.
I mean,
that was crazy.
That would have been epic. That would have been great. I hope to hear on the oral history of the Chicago Bears and how they like turned their franchise around. I need to read like 2,000 words on that tirade. Like I need multiple perspectives of what happened, what was said, like that. I cannot wait for that to come out in like 10, 15 years.
If the Bears win it all and eventually, you may look back on this as the moment that kind of changes
the moment.
This is when the Cubs won the World Series. Who was the player that had the kind of clubhouse speech that kind of changed their fortunes in that game?
Yeah,
Jason Hayward. Jason
I agree
Hayward.
with
This is
Jason
the
Hayward. Yeah,
Jason Hayward moment for the Bears. This is Jalen Johnson, MF and the coach that did it.
I love it. Now that's a good place to end it. We'll stick around a little bit for the YouTube crowd. And until next time, everybody, thanks for joining us, and bear down. Man, that would have been bad if I wouldn't have been able to answer that wearing a Cubs hat on this show. Because I'm not, as knowledgeable about the Cubs as I am about the Bears by a long shot, like, 0.5% probably. That would have been embarrassing. Start off with our guy Axel. He's sending me a bottle of something. So I'm just teasing that. We're excited. When I get it, I'll bring it on. He's sending me a bottle. I'm not gonna go say any more, but sending me a bottle. I liked number one Bears fan. Christmas came early, flushing the Floos. I thought that was a good show name.
Yeah.
The Bears have flushed the Floos, but
long overdue.
Well, it was. It should have happened in January. Again, it couldn't. Where are you at with this? And Anthony, I'm not picking on you, but this leader of men thing, I think is going to get real old real quick. And I definitely don't think he called him a beta. That is probably not what he said. But I mean, if you're a good coach, like you're leading men, like, because you're winning football games. Like, is Andy Reid a leader of men? Of course he is, right? Would you call him like this strong presence, like a Mike Vrabel? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here? What does leader of men mean? This is a guy that the players rally behind and can count on. It's not this like archetype that I think a lot of people are thinking. A lot of ways, Ditka wasn't a leader of men. Half the team didn't like him.
Yeah,
right?
Turned out that the whole Ditka thing was like the locker room was split, but for that team, for that moment, it worked. Because what he was again. I go back to, if you got the corny sayings, if you're really rah rah, it only works if you can back it up with wins. So this whole thing with Ben Johnson. I mean, I've heard him talk a few times, obviously not as much as Lions fans, but nothing he's done or nothing he said has made me think that he couldn't be the guy. And look, all these head coaches now, they all started somewhere. It's easier to find a guy that kind of come out and be your number one guy than getting a retread guy and having him get you back there. You mentioned Andy Reid, it worked for him, right? There's certainly guys that it has worked for in the past, but I think Ben Johnson
is a cerebral guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
very nerdy, right? That Bears can look at him as kind of a nerdy guy. I think we talk about how Flus kind of has the beta personality. He's not the same like Pete Carroll in Seattle, right? Very, very big personality. We think he may have reined in some of the Shane Waldron stuff because what happened this year with Waldron, like a stronger leader, doesn't allow that to happen on his watch. Flus kind of just stood back and let that happen. So in that aspect, yeah, I think that's a problem. But I think Ben Johnson's learning from a guy like Dan Campbell. He's sitting under his wing. I think that's only going to benefit him in the long run because Dan Campbell's a pretty damn good football coach.
Yeah, I'm all in on Ben Johnson, but our buddy Papa Scarb says that George was up late playing Madden. I mean, I gotta ask because Papa Scarbs is a Madden guy. Were you playing him? Were you talking to him on the headset? Were you schooling George in running? I don't know what do you run? What do you run in Madden, right? Or what offense are you running? I got to know. You running a pure progression? Are you running more zone beater concepts? Like what? You probably whatever Kurt Warner likes is probably what Papa Scarbs is.
And I'll tell you this: so you do not want to get into a conversation about Madden because he will tell you about it. He will run through his entire playbook with you. I know from experience. But that's my guy. I love him. Good job.
I love it. Let's see. Cloudy, I don't know that this just happened today. Here's the thing. All you Bears fans you're going to hear all of these coaching names come up. These are just agents that are doing their
Yes.
job to get that name out into the into the ether and say, hey, you know who would be a good fit? Boy, wouldn't Marcus Freeman be a good fit for Chicago Bears head coach? And people go, oh, yeah, I love him. Oh, I hate him. Right. And then he gets in the conversation. Maybe he gets a bump, maybe he gets a raise. Right. Maybe, we're in his current situation. A lot of college coaches have done that before. None of it means anything.
No.
None of it means anything until there's an interview, and then it starts to mean something. And even then, it might not mean anything. Sometimes interviews happen as favors.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you put my guy up? I'm really I want to get him in, a few interviews, and when we're negotiating player X's contract, I'll remember, right? Like, don't think that people are above that. So even some of the interviews aren't real. Okay. So there's some real candidates. We don't even have those yet. There's 5 weeks left. This is not real. This is not real.
Yeah. This is Marcus Freeman's agent floating his name out
Doing a
there
great job.
so they can go back to Notre Dame and say, hey, my client, he's getting some buzz from the NFL, and Notre Dame will they'll renegotiate his deal.
Another fun fact from Cloudy.
Jeez.
This was actually brought up by our good friend Robert Schmitz. He floated it out to me and Jack. Jack, of course, gobbled it up right away. Wrote an article on it.
Yeah.
Yep. He saw that as I gotta get on that. I don't know, digesting my Thanksgiving leftovers. I don't know. I was like, yeah, okay, take it, Jack. But yes, that is a fun fact that Eberflus is the only Bears coach to have never beat the Packers. The thing is, though, even when the Bears have been bad, they've also, like, the Packers were also bad in some, or those coaching stints were like long. This is a pretty short stint, and so I guess maybe the Tressman might have been because it was only 2 years. But like, still, it's not that crazy that's all. I mean, maybe Fox getting a win was maybe the biggest surprise, because he would have had 3 years. But anyway,
yeah, Flus. There's a lot of the more you dig into Flus's tenure in Chicago, a lot of bad you can find there.
I don't know about this. I thought Billings was fantastic before he got injured. So I don't think that it hurt his performance at all. I think
Billings, he always carries weight, right? But he's also,
a big
like,
dude. When you
he's
see him
a
in person,
power lifter. Like, that's his thing.
Yeah.
He's strong as a bull.
When you stand out on a professional football field, when you, like, pop out for any reason, either like because you're jumping higher or whatever, Billings pops out. When the first time we saw him at camp, we were like, whoa, who's that? Oh, that's Billings. Holy crap, he's big. When that happens, you're impressively big. So he probably needed to lose a little weight for conditioning, but I think it was allowing him to play more plays. But I don't think his impact had lessened.
Yeah, I thought he was still playing pretty good.
He's a good football. I always liked him. I was really excited when he signed him.
Yeah,
because I get nerdy about interior line play. But he's better than I thought he'd be. So, and I had a high opinion of him. So he has delivered. So hopefully he can come back from that injury and be good.
Let's end it here. Yeah. Papa Scarbs gave us his offense. I told you, man. If I'm sure I'm going to get it, because that's who called me a little while ago. He gave me a call. I think he forgot we were still on the show, but he runs a custom combo McVay air raid hybrid on defense. He's a split field coverage 4-2-5. See, I told you. He takes that serious.
Call it nickel. Why did you say 4-2-5? So like, sounds like a soccer way to say it.
I guarantee you, if he would have a reason why he doesn't call it nickel.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure I'm going to get a text that explains it here in a minute. I saw one more.
Okay.
The Tyreek. I think it's Bush League. I don't think you should do that stuff. I know he drew the flag. That's cool, I guess, if you want to do that stuff. I hate that stuff. Like I was a echo of the whistle guy as a play. I mean, I didn't play professional football, of course, but like I was an echo of the whistle. I would go through the whistle and give a little push at the end. The whistle's still going maybe, and I'm pushing, right. But like between whistles. Like that to me, that's what you do. I'm on the boundary. Like I'm not trying to trip a guy. I'm not. No, I thought that stuff sucked. So I don't like that at all.
Yeah, he needs to grow up a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. Well, I think that's good. I think that's it. That's enough for me.
This game's gonna be fun this Sunday. Niners. A lot of talk about them possibly getting rid of Shanahan, which I can't see them.
That's not going to happen.
Shanahan, come on, what are we doing here?
No, that's not going to happen.
You know, that team has got a ton of injuries.
And I think you're allowed a down year every once in a while.
Yeah.
Now, if that puts him on notice for next year, and they come out and they're bad again next year, I could see something happening. But like, absolutely not. You got to give a guy 1 year. I mean, this is a team that just kept going back to at least the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
I mean, they're right there. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment to be a Final Four team and to continue to do it. No, Bears fans can, and I guarantee you there would be Bears fans that would say, I don't want him.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%.
Like, I mean, the Bears fans that are, I mean, the craziest thing I saw today, I don't want to pick on this person, but like was go out and trade for Kevin O'Connell.
That wasn't a Bears fan. That was a writer.
ESPN writer.
Yeah. I think The Athletic. Was it?
I think it's ESPN now. I think
one of those big networks. I'm like, what?
Yeah. So no, that's not even a Bears fantasy fan. I thought maybe they wrote about the Bears.
No,
that was just random.
They're national.
Okay, so
that's like one of the dumbest things I've seen.
The wish casting is unreal on some of this stuff. Like coach trades don't happen very much, but when they do, it's because the team wants to move on from the coach.
Yeah.
Like people are saying, well, what's the price on a guy like? There is no price. Yeah. He's not for sale.
Not up. Yeah.
Like it's not an option. So don't even bring it up. It's just dumb. Like that doesn't help us have this conversation. And if you want to say like, how do we get a guy like Kevin O'Connell? Well, that's a different conversation. Yeah. How do we get a guy like Matt LaFleur? That's a different conversation. Not how do we go out and get the division rival head coach that's really good at winning one-score football games and getting more out of his team than anybody else. Yeah, it's not going to happen. They don't want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So anyway.
One more just popped up. Appreciate it. United States of America is better today because Eberflus is gone. As soon as McCaskies are gone, we'll be better. There were 3 McCaskies today at the press conference.
I know. I wrote a tweet the other day when I thought they weren't firing him. I came after George again, and I said, I'm now raising the siren for Brian.
Brian.
It doesn't quite rhyme, but I couldn't find a rhyme. He's right there. We've heard through the grapevine that maybe he's a good football mind.
Yeah.
So anyway, appreciate that. I don't know how to say this name, so I do appreciate the pitch in for the cause
super
here.
Chat. Yeah, appreciate it.
And yes, the super chat. Thank you. And I will say I don't know that if we can get rid of the McCaskies, but I do think that maybe the next McCaskey may be better. I mean, it can't
be worse.
That's a good place to end it. This will probably be what they clip and send back to me when I try to get credentialed, and they say no. Okay, we'll end it there. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.